to order of the Committee of Adjustment at 9:11. And I will just remind everyone that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Thank you. And I'm going to get the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Green. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated December 11th, 2023 be adopted. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay, and that Chelsea, would you like to?
Morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements, then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, Joe Quinn, and Sean Stokes. I can confirm we have quorum. I can also confirm that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this December 11th agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, December 8th, 2023. The planner will present any submissions received after this date. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you are here to speak on an application, please wait to raise your hand in Zoom until the planner presents the relevant application. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. The committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variance applications and the reasons for minor variance decisions are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have also been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. The motions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted that the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. Lastly, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment minutes dated November 13th, 2023 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? Yes.
I'd just like to note my name is missing from the minutes as having attended that meeting of November 13th.
Okay.
We will adjust the minutes accordingly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and the first application is B 43, 44, 45, 23 ML, and also A 6923 for a committee of adjustment for a minor variance, and that's Cummings. And that is Kristen Darling.
Good morning, committee. Thank you, Chair Edwards. The first applications to be heard are concurrent consent applications B 43, 44, 45 / 23 / ML and minor variance application A 6923. Sorry. In the name of Cummings, the subject lands are known municipally as 1161 and 1163 Stevens Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 43 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of consent application B 4323 ML is to sever a portion of the subject property to the south and add it to the abutting lot to the north. I would direct committee's attention to the second consent sketch on page 44 of the agenda package. And the purpose and effect of consent applications B 44 and 45 23 ML is to sever a portion of the subject property abutting Lake Rosso and add it to the abutting lot to the south. And the second consent application is to sever a portion of the north property and add it to the abutting lot to the south. This resultant lot sketch is on page 45 of the agenda package, and this is what the lots would look like if the three consent applications are approved. Lastly, I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 46 of the agenda package. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 8 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, Tim Sopko, the manager of public works, Sarah Campbell, planner for the district municipality of Muskoka, and Hydro One, and they all state that they have no objection to the application. Comments were received from Sandy Boss, the township's septic inspector, stating that the retained lot from B 4523 ML needs to change the proposed lot line by 22 feet in the area of the filter bed servicing the retained lot. Comments were received from Douglas Holland, Township Fire Prevention Officer, advising the response time and advising the owners to pre-plan with the fire department concerning fire risks. Comments were received from Bell Canada requesting an easement, which a condition has been recommended to include. A letter of opposition was received from the adjacent neighbor to 1163 Stephen Road, Fred Lasani, who was concerned that he didn't receive the notice and would like the application to be deferred so that he may have time to discuss the effect of the application will have on their common boundary and waterfront, together with their use and enjoyment of the same as neighbors. And I can read this letter in full if committee wishes.
Did the committee receive that letter? I think it'd be great if we could hear it.
Do I read it now or do I finish my presentation?
Finish the presentation.
So the proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that consent applications B 43, 44, 45, 23 ML Cummings be approved, subject to the standard conditions of consent, and that zoning relief from the lot frontage, cumulative dock width, and maximum second-story boathouse size requirements on this resultant lot 1 be approved, and that minor variance application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is there applicant or applicants? Okay, sorry.
Okay, so this is the letter that we received after we sent all the comments to committee. So dear Miss Darling, I'm writing as the owner of 1165 Stephen Drive, which abuts 1161/1163 Stephen Drive. My family have resided at 1165 Stephen Drive for several years, but have been involved in the Muskoka community for almost 30 years. We are proud to be residents of one of the most important properties in the Muskoka area. The property was settled by one of the founders of the Muskoka Township, Arthur Stephen, who built the residence in 1869. In fact, it could be said that this particular area of Muskoka represents the essence of community and neighborhood, as all the properties that surround our home at one time were owned by the Stephen family, and that as parcels severed, they became in ownership of the extended family members. I wish to express my concern regarding the proposed consent and minor variance applications being sought by the applicants. Our family has been involved in the development industry for over 50 years, and we are extremely well versed in the approval process, whether it's via the Committee of Adjustment, Planning Committee, Council, or the Ontario Land Tribunal. It came as an unfortunate surprise when we learned on Tuesday, December 5th of the applications made by our neighbors, only because our property manager came upon the sign posted on the property. As our company is extremely well adversed on the protocol to process notifications from neighboring properties on applications for redevelopment, it is surprising to me that we did not receive a notification. Staff have informed me that the notice was sent through Canada Post. However, I can confirm that this was not received. Therefore, we submit that we were not provided the appropriate notification in accordance with the Planning Act. Furthermore, being that we are extremely experienced in what is deemed to be respectful courtesy amongst neighbors, we live immediately next door, and at no time were we ever approached by our neighbors to let us know about the forthcoming application. We have also been in constant communication with the Township's Planning Department as we are discussing an application of our own scheduled for January 15th, 2024. At no time during our conversations did staff bring up the application despite the fact that they knew we were the immediate neighbors next door. As the responsibility of the municipality as it regulates to notification are clearly understood, I would indicate that the significant changes have taken place through Bill 23, provide full authority to the municipality on applications of this nature, thereby removing the rights of neighbors to be able to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This is an extremely significant change as it increases the burden of responsibility to the municipality and applicants to ensure that they communicate effectively and provide for the rights of neighbors to have their concerns heard. We have experience with several similar applications and are routinely asked to hold ourselves to a higher level of responsibility by taking the opportunities to communicate directly with our neighbors through newsletters and town hall meetings. We are prepared to delegate and present our position to committee. However, we believe that the committee meeting is set up to be adversarial and is not conducive to allow fluid discussion to understand the full details of the proposal and work together to find solutions. In consideration of the above, we ask that planning staff request and committee grants a deferral of the application scheduled on Monday, December 11th, 2023, in order that I may have a period of time within which to discuss the effect of the applications will have on their common boundary and waterfront together with their use and enjoyment of the same as neighbors. Thank you to your attention to this matter, and we appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Sincerely, Fred Lasani.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we have your name, address, and postal code, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Susan Cummings. I reside together with my husband, Stephen Cummings, at 1161 Stephen Road, Port Carling, P0B1J0. Should I continue?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My husband and I have owned this property for 12 years. and we live here full time following our retirement. We only own property in Port Carling, nowhere else. Earlier this year, we were provided the opportunity to purchase the adjoining property to ours at 1163 Stephen Road by our neighbours, and we were very happy to complete the purchase in the summer. Thanks for the opportunity to provide you with some points of context for our application that you have before you this morning. There are a couple of components to our request as follows. Firstly, we wish to sever and add a slice of our backlot land from our 1161 property in order to broaden the 1161 driveway, which is very narrowly tucked in between our existing property and that of our neighbour, the Lasanis, on the right-hand side. The change would only impact our land between 1161 and 1163. Secondly, we would like to tidy up the boundary lines between our two properties within 200 feet of the waterfront. We would achieve this by effecting a small land swap of approximately 3,200 square feet between our two properties. By redrawing the boundary line in this way, we would regularize it, make it run slightly more straightly than it does today. And we would also increase the waterfront on 1163 from 143 to 200 feet, whilst reducing the waterfront of 1161 commensurately, albeit still retaining 810 feet of shoreline on 1161. This would actually enable us to better orient the view and our use of 1163 as we look out to Bass Island from the left-hand side of the 1163 property, while still retaining ample spacing between 1163 and our existing boathouse on our 1161 property. This actually is important to our privacy and enjoyment of the 1163 property, as our neighbour's boathouse and other structures abut right up against our right-hand boundary line between 1163 and the Lasani's property at 1165. So in conclusion, the changes we're requesting only impact the two pieces of property that are in our ownership and have no impact whatsoever on the Lasani's property, other than keeping us oriented away from their property and towards the left. So in conclusion, thank you very much for your time and consideration this morning.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? No? Anyone in opposition to this application? Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Need your name.
It's Fred Lozani. I'm a resident at 31 Rock Chapel Road, Grimsby, and of course own the property at 1165 in Port Carling. I do not have my postal code available right now.
Okay.
Thanks very much for the letter having been read this morning. We were able to submit it only on Friday. As I indicated in the letter, we did not receive any notification by way of Canada Post, and came upon the application simply by our property manager having seen the actual pink notice that was on the property. As I've indicated, this process is quite familiar to me. And in circumstances like this, where we've been approached as an applicant, it was quite commonplace to have planning staff request that, in fact, we cooperate with standing down our application and provide a deferral in those circumstances when Canada Post didn't work. we've always cooperated under those circumstances. And my request to the town planner to provide at least a request to the neighbor so that they might cooperate to stand down on the application for today did not happen. I was hoping that Bryce was able to make a recommendation to committee, but that didn't come forward either. We have grave concerns over the complexity of the issue next door, and I take exception with the applicant's comments that this does not affect the enjoyment of our property. In fact, I believe that it affects us quite tremendously. We have consulted with the one of our consultants that we brought on stream just this week as it relates to the application in order that we might be able to understand better. And it's proven to be complex even for individuals that do this for a living. The neighbor made comments about the somehow this bettering their use of their sight lines to Bass Island. I'm not sure I understand that. And I really don't understand comments in relation to our separation. Of note, I would to let you know that our boathouse, which has been there for almost 50 years from well before we took ownership, is just over 20 feet from the actual property line. And I'll note a number of other items that, you know, would confirm why we believe that a deferral would be necessary. We've been informed that the actual footage of, it notes that the 1161 address would have a reduction in its footage from 407 to 364, an amount of 43 feet. Yet the property at 1163 at 142 feet, if the 43 feet was added to it, would only be 185 and not 200. I'm well versed on one issue, and that is that frontage has a lot to do with the size of buildings that you can put up and the size of boathouses and so on. And so this issue of being able to take from one and add to another is incredibly concerning for a couple of reasons. One is that by reducing the 1161 property, it no longer makes the boathouse size compliant, as it would be 250 square feet over what the bylaw allows. Furthermore, my understanding is that if 1163 were to be able to add 43 feet or 58 feet or whatever it is, because in order to go from 142 to 200, it would be 58 feet that they'd be adding, that it would then enable that property, 1163, to be able to have a boathouse that would be even larger by the tune of 18% per foot, or the cumulative square footage. And that concerns me because I don't know anything about what their intents are on the property. I don't know if they intend to build. I don't know if they intend to put a boathouse up. I don't know where the boathouse might be located. I certainly would not want that boathouse slammed up against my property line, that's for sure. And I believe that the impact of these consents and severances would enable them to be able to build a fair-sized boathouse that would be of concern. I also heard from a consultant, and I understand that staff and perhaps a member of committee may be aware of the fact that the actual footage or frontage of 1161 is not 407, but rather 364. Sorry, not 407, but rather 338, based upon the rules and guidelines as to how the frontages are established. That even though in 2012, when the actual 407 was determined, that it was a rather gratuitous number that enabled them to qualify for a larger boathouse, but that the actual footage is 338. And if in fact 338 is the footage, then it currently is not compliant to be able to have a boathouse its own size. And then if 338 is actually the footage, that means that they're asking for relief down to 295, which would make the property much smaller than myself. As you can know, that there's just a lot of questions that are yet to be answered here, and a number of interpretations of what might be right as it relates to what was granted in 2012 versus what is being granted today. The implications of which are very significant because it sets a precedent of possibly allowing a boathouse as large as they have on a property that once severed may be as small as 295. And then furthermore, identifying 1161 as a 200-foot wide property, which I believe to be inaccurate, which would then enable them to be able to put a much larger boathouse and possibly a much larger cottage on the property. As you can tell, the concerns are significant, and we're not asking that this application be denied. We're not saying that we would be uncooperative. What we're asking for is time to be able to understand the issue better, and I believe that under the circumstances, a request for deferment is more than appropriate, especially, given the fact that Bill 23 does not allow me, as a concerned neighbor, to appeal this application to any other body. All responsibilities reside with this committee, and it is a truly large responsibility and a big burden to shoulder, but I expect the committee will make the right decision. I just hope that we have the right to be able to make further comment. Finally, on the basis of our most recent experiences since Bill 23, with regards to variances through committees of adjustment at a variety of municipalities, we have yet to be granted an approval through committees, particularly in the town of Grimsby, because of their fear of the situation and the responsibilities, and they have pushed 2 of our applications to OLT. I'm not suggesting that take place here, but I am letting you know that this is a real concern amongst municipalities in Ontario, and should be a big concern to residents who have concerns over applications being brought forward. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Okay, so my first question, and I'm with you on the Bill 23 where neighbors can no longer appeal. I think that's been a drastic change, so I agree with you on that. But I think what I need to know now is, do we have accurate numbers here? It's being questioned on frontage and everything else. Did we have an actual survey come in here, or is this what was sort of presented to us? Thank you.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question. Member Bridgman, yes, the numbers that staff have put in front of you are accurate numbers. I think part of the confusion with respect to this application lies in the fact that there was a previous planning approval from 2012 that identified the lot frontage of the property being 407 feet measured across the point, and that's indicated on one of the consent sketches. And part of the reason that staff supported that request and it was approved is because the property has significant assessed or actual frontage. It forms part of Arthur Lee Point, and as you know, the bylaw requires frontage to be measured in a straight line between where each side lot line intersects the high water mark. So in 2012, when the bylaw was approved relating to this property, if you measured it in a straight line method, the property had significantly less than 400 feet, which is the requirement for a 2-story boathouse with a 650 square foot sleeping cabin on the upper level, plus a 250 square foot sleeping cabin, or sorry, covered area. So at that time, as I had indicated, the frontages was measured across the point, and the way that staff have proceeded with the application, essentially the frontage still is being measured across the point. And what Mr. Lasani has pointed out is that when you take a straight line measurement, the frontage also reduces. It's not less than 300 feet. In fact, it's 338 feet. So the numbers are accurate. And again, I think the reasoning for staff support is again based on the significant amount of frontage on this property. Ultimately, lot frontages and shoreline structure widths as they relate to lot frontage are about controlling density and built form. And I think in this case, you could argue that the property has at least two, if not three distinct frontages on Lake Rosso and shoreline structures that are situated on separate frontages. So again, I just wanted to give a bit of context there with respect to staff's reasoning for their support for the application. I'd be happy to provide any further clarification that may be needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Yes, Mr. Member Clune.
Yeah, there's a lot of measurements. There's a lot of stuff here. It looks like it's been done by a surveyor, and the actual straight line frontage, the new one, the potential one, from the severance of the water frontage, being B44. I don't have what that straight line might have been. I believe that back in 2012. I like the concept of the resultant line because I believe that this is a special property and it does have a lot of frontage. But I believe that on that day, they were granted a lot of extras, not 75 feet of docking. They got 115. They got a distinct set of docking on each side of the point. They got an extra sleeping cabin out front. And they also got a boathouse that got the extra 200, the benefit of having a 400-foot lot, with having the extra 250 feet of covered porch upstairs. And now we'd be taking that from 407 to 364. I don't, it doesn't sit well with me without support from neighbors. I have no problem with the two severance or the first two applications being the backlands, but I think that this application should be deferred or voted on all three separately.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I agree with Member Quinn in terms of what he just said. I believe that it sounds like a not uncommon situation where Canada Post or the individuals have not seen the notice in a timely manner. More importantly, the neighbors, I think, have to communicate with one another, and I think that's something that deserves a little bit of time. And then just one other comment, 41 feet as a variance with regard to the cumulative dock width seems excessive to me. I'm not sure if it is, but it seems like a very big variance and a very wide dock. And I'm wondering if committee can give me some idea as to whether that is a reasonable number.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question, Member Stokes. I would just point out with respect to Member Quinn's comment with respect to the dock width that was approved. The property originally had 144 feet of cumulative dock width, and that was considered to be legal non-complying. And through the 2012 application, the applicants actually reduced it down to 115 feet. So I would just make that comment. And again, with respect to the proposal of 115 feet, nothing's changing with respect to the docks. They're still 115. I think we've included 116 just to be safe, to give a little bit of flexibility. So nothing's changing there. And again, staff's reasons for supporting the application are the same as I had mentioned previously, given the large extent of shoreline frontage. If you consider the percentage based on the actual assessed shoreline frontage, it's actually about 13.6% of the shoreline frontage, whereas the bylaw as a straight line measurement permits up to 25%. And again, they're located on separate frontages. So I think it's a hard sell for staff to say that, somehow because of the reduction in frontage that built form is going to be, built form is going to dominate over natural form on this property. Thank you.
Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. To Member Stokes, this is not unusual to have this kind of boathouse and development on a point of land like this. I mean, we have We have approved that many, many times through the planning committee. I have no issue with it because if you look at it in terms of the Planning Act and the density, they're on separate sides, they're whatever. So I think in terms of the Ontario guidance that this is fine. And I mean, this was approved. This is part of our bylaw right now. These are already here. So I don't think we can start to play with it anyway. So I don't have any issue with that. And I mean, the 200 feet comes into better compliance on that piece of property. If we want to defer it, I don't have an issue with that either, so that there may be a chance to well, I can see Mr. Sharp wants to say something, so I'm going to stop talking.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you for indulging me, Chair Edwards. On the point of deferral, I just wanted to make one comment with respect to Mr. Lasani's note about his request for a deferral and a staff recommendation on that point. I did speak with Mr. Lasani offline and heard his reasons why he wanted a deferral. As you know, a public notice has been circulated and this public hearing does need to be held. And I felt it better for Mr. Lasani to put forward his reasons and his specific request for a deferral than staff in this case. So I just wanted to clarify that point. And certainly, if committee wants to take a pause on this application in order to allow Mr. Lasani and the Cummings to reach out to each other and perhaps clarify reasons, certainly could do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was a little confused too with the frontages, because when I added it up, it was 185 compared to the 200 feet. I'd like to see that clarified. But if staff could remind me, I believe the sewage inspection requested it be denied, and that's the 22-foot sliver, I believe, at the back. So there may be ways to change that. So maybe a deferral would be in order, but maybe the planner can verify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, I just clarify that Mr. Boss, the township's septic inspector, did not recommend that the application be denied. He simply recommended that the lot configuration of one of the severed lots be adjusted so that it wouldn't impact an existing septic system. And certainly if the application does get deferred, we could bring back a sketch showing you what that would look like. I think otherwise that's something that staff could handle at the staff level when a reference plan is submitted. I don't think it's a monumental change. It's not really going to impact anything with respect to zoning compliance. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I thought I seen an X where it says denied in the box, but maybe I'm wrong in that, because we got that late. But if committee would like to defer this, so we get everything straightened up, that would be great. It's up to yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I have the comment in front of me, and you are correct. It does indicate denied.
Thank you.
But there is a condition below. So perhaps it's a matter of us amending our form so that it's a little bit more clear. I do apologize. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think maybe, I don't know, what would committee like to do on this? That deferral? I think it would be wise then at this time to defer this application, get the lot lines and that corrected and all the measurements double checked. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application P4123ML in the name of Eagleson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1139 Trafalgar Bay Road, and I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 65 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever land and add it to an abutting lot to the north, currently in the ownership of Franco and Teresa D'Alessandro. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 19 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, the district municipality of Muskoka's planning department, Hydro One, and they all state no objection to the application. Comments were received from Sandy Boss, the township septic inspector, stating that the resultant and retained lot have an existing system approved with a building permit, and there is area for a new system. Lastly, comments from Bell Canada were submitted requiring an easement. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the standard conditions of consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. Is the applicant or the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Good morning, Keith Edwards. There you go. Good morning, Keith Edwards, applicant's agent, Post Office Box 65, Bala, Ontario, P0C1A0. It is a pretty straightforward application. I'm just here in case there was questions to be answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? And anyone in opposition? Okay, I will just state for the record, even though the agent's name is Edwards, we're not related, so that, no, well, I just wanted, and that on there. And that, are there questions from the members?
I haven't read it in here, but I just, a lot of times we do some housekeeping and cleaning up of some buildings on the property or around, and it just looks like a lot of buildings out back that maybe should be talked about. You know, sometimes we're removing a woodshed or a small shed, and it looks like this has a lot of stuff in the backlands from the pictures.
Did we confirm lot coverage?
Through you, Chair Edwards, both properties from the lot areas we were given are considerably under their lot coverage.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Or questions? If not, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown, be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4223. Oh, wait a minute now. This is, I've got the wrong one there. Okay, sorry. I flipped when that other one was stuck to a paper clip. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Brown, be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4123 ML Eagleson, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registered description deed of the severed lot together with any required right-of-ways or easements be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, the legal undertaking be submitted to confirm that the severed lot will merge in title to the lot is being added to upon registration of the transfers/deeds, which may require canceling consent if necessary. And 3, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied with the resultant lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Excuse me. The next application is A 4223 Ofield, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 4223 ML in the name of Ofield. The subject lands have no municipally assigned address. However, the civic address of the benefiting lot is 1161 Armstrong Point Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketches on pages 78 to 80 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever land and add it to an abutting lot to the north, currently in the ownership of Craig and Victoria Ofield. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 21 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and the District Municipality of Muskoka's Planning Department, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Sandy Boss, the township septic inspector, stating that the resultant lot, being benefiting and severed lots, has an existing system approved under a building permit, and that the system appears to be functioning as per the approval. Further, due to the extreme slopes and bedrock, the retained lot has limited area for the development of an on-site sewage treatment system, but that the proposed severance does not dramatically impact area for an on-site sewage treatment system. Comments from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, were provided, listing fire response times and recommending that both lots consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Lastly, comments were received from Hydro One stating no objection to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the standard conditions of consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? I believe we have an agent.
Good morning, everyone. Debbie Van Nacker, 104 Kimberly Avenue, Bracebridge, P1L 1Z8 from Planscape. We were retained by the Ofields to represent them with the application. We have no comments other than we are here if you have any questions. We fully agree with staff's report.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Or anyone in opposition?
So I think somebody in support, just.
Yeah, sorry, I have somebody.
Would you like to see if they'd like to come in?
No.
Okay. Very good. Other questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4223 ML Ofield, provided that the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a satisfactory registrable description deed of the separate lot, together with any required right-of-way or easements, be submitted to the township, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a legal undertaking be submitted to confirm that the separate lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfers/deeds, which may include canceling consent if necessary. And 3, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained and resultant lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. And the next application is B 4623 ML, and that's Chow, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 4623 ML in the name of Chow. The subject land is known municipally as 1789 Brackenridge Road, unit number 13. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 96 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever a piece of land and add it to an abutting lot to the northwest in the ownership of Mark and Suzanne Cohen. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 6 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, the district municipality of Muskoka's planning department, Hydro One, and Sandy Boss, the township's septic inspector, all stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Bell Canada advising that an easement is required. And lastly, comments from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, listing fire response times and recommending that both lots consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the standard conditions of its consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. And is the owner or the owner's agent here? I believe we have the agent. Good morning.
Morning, Chair Edwards and committee members. Terry Ledger, I'm agent for the applicant, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, Ontario, T0B1J0. This is just a change in lot lines only. The Childs have a large piece of property and have done a similar consent agreement with the adjacent property. You can see in between the new benefiting and the retaining lot. So I'm just here to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Okay, thank you very much. Questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn and seconded by member Green. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4623 Chow, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable description deed of the severed lot, together with any required right-of-way or easements, be submitted to the township, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that any necessary easements over the subject lands be granted to Bell Canada. 3, that legal undertaking be submitted to confirm that the severed lot will merge in title to the lot is being added to upon registration of the transfer/deed, which may require canceling consent. And 4, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied with the resultant lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 4723 ML Clark, and that is Miss Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 4723 ML in the name of Clark. The subject land is known municipally as 1020 Hunt Road, unit number 4. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 106 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to grant a right-of-way over an existing driveway in favor of the abutting lot currently in the ownership of Kenneth Clark. Please note that there was an error in the notice that stated that the abutting neighbor was Judith and Andrew Nye, sorry about that, instead of Kenneth Clark. Notice of the public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments received were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and the district municipality of Muskoka's planning department, Hydro One, and Sandy Boss, the township's septic inspector, all stating no objection to the application. Lastly, comments from Douglas Holland of the township fire prevention officer listing fire response times and recommending that both lots consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the standard conditions of consent. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. And do we have anybody, the agent or the applicant? Okay. Are there any questions or comments? No questions or comments? Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4723 ML Clark, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. One, that a satisfactory registrable description deed of the severed lot or right of way be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. And 2, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained lot is satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's granted. Thank you. And the next application is A 6821, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6821, amended in the name of Lemelin. The subject lands are known municipally as 1035 Montgomery Drive, unit number 1. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan and drawings on page 120 to 123 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dock and 2-story boathouse and propose to construct a new dock and 2-story boathouse. This application was originally heard by Committee of Adjustment on December 13th of 2021. During the hearing, the application was adjourned. The applications have now been submitted a revised proposal. The application has been amended and was recirculated. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, both stating no objection to the application. The third is a letter of objection from the adjacent neighbor, Bruce Erkstein, and on behalf of Dayuta and John Erkstein. He has concerns about the size of the boathouse and would like it to be set back 45 feet from the eastern lot line. The environmental report should be part of the committee's decision. He would like a proper survey done. Boat navigation should be of concern to committee, and the boathouse should be more modest and identify the height. I can read this letter in full if committee wishes. And a 4th letter of objection from an area neighbor, Donalyn Jelly, was received. They have concerns that they did not receive the notice and about the precedent for future requests for a 2-story boathouse on 200-foot lots. And I can read that also if committee wishes. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application for redevelopment of a two-story boathouse on a lot with less than 300 feet of frontage and to exceed cumulative dock width be approved, subject to the satisfactory site plan amendment to be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer, and to implement the recommendations of the Fish and Aquatic Habitat Impact Study dated for September 8th, 2023, and prepared by Terra Story Environmental Consulting, Inc. The variance to exceed permitted cumulative single-story boathouse width has been recommended to be denied. Staff have no further comments at this time and am happy to answer any questions by committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? I believe we have Muskoka Lumber.
Hi there, Sean Donaldson, agent for the applicant, the Lemelin family, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carling, Ontario. Yes, so the first, thank you, Kristen, for your report. Ultimately, if we get denied and the application is approved as the planners suggested, that's ultimately okay with us. But the main reason that I'd just like to highlight why we are looking for the added width is if you look at the sketch that we provided, the boathouse structure is 32.5 feet long instead of 50 feet, going all the way up to 50 feet from shore to keep it back from the waterway, trying to limit the dock length to 50 feet into the waterway. We recognize that, you know, it is a fairly narrow waterway, despite the fact that it's not considered a narrow water body. So again, to rotate the boathouse 90 degrees, keeping it 32.5 feet wide to as little obstructive view of neighbors as possible was our primary goal in this proposal, because the letter that we had, that had been an objection to the past proposal on this property by another firm before we got involved, was that the neighbors did not like the fact that the boathouse was at the 0-foot side yard setback and would protrude 50 feet from shore. So we brought the boathouse into conformance by bringing it to the 30-foot setback. And yeah, just trying to keep it back from everybody's view as much as possible, well inside of the 50-foot boathouse limit. And the boathouse, essentially, if we were to build a single-story boathouse as of right, it would be 32.5 feet wide by 50 feet long, I'm sorry, where this proposal is 40 feet wide and 32.5 feet long. So we've quite literally just swapped length for width in hopes that it would, as little as possible, impede the view of the neighbors. But otherwise, as I said, we are happy to take planning's directive and have their recommendation be passed, but we genuinely believe that this is the best option for the neighbors around. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in support of this application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Your name, address, and postal code, please.
All right. My name is Bruce Erskine. I reside at 1033 Scout Trail in Port Carling, POB 1J0.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. First of all, just a point of question. Is this a Zoom only meeting, or is it a hybrid meeting with some attendees in person and others on Zoom?
Right now we have the full committee here, and now applicants and agents and that coming on. Okay.
Oh no, but they're coming on. But are they're in person, or are they actually on Zoom?
The agents and owners are mostly on Zoom.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. I will be as brief and succinct as I can. I think I can do this in under 4 minutes. First, I want to express my disappointment with the Lemlins in not keeping the commitment that they made to the December 13th, 2021 Committee of Adjustments. They promised at that point, or they committed at that point, to work with their neighbor, myself, and my family in coming up with a mutually satisfactory solution to their wanting to rebuild their boathouse. A number of proposals were made by the applicant, and none of them addressed our concern. They would move a couple of feet each time that we raised a concern, and it basically accumulated in our last communication to them was on June the 5th, 2022. There's been no communication from them in 18 months. And now I'm blindsided by their recent application, which I received on December the 4th. And by the way, the Canada Post notice didn't arrive until December the 8th. I've had no time to obtain professional input and little time to prepare any submission. I am further compounded, of course, by Bill 23 and the fact that whatever decision is made here today, I have no right of appeal. I strongly feel that Mr. and Mrs. Lemlin, had they worked with us to find a mutual agreement, a great deal of extra expense, time, and effort could have been avoided for myself and my family, the applicants, and the Committee of Adjustment. We are not against the applicant's desire to rebuild their boathouse, as we indicated in our June the 5th, 2022 letter. I believe that the applicants feel their existing boathouse is grandfathered and that they can maintain the dimensions of the existing second story and add a dramatic addition to the first floor dimensions. If this was the first boathouse to be built on a 204-foot frontage lot, a second-story sleeping unit would not be permitted. My concerns, I have, I believe, 9 concerns. I'll go through them very quickly. We ask that the overall size of the new boathouse be reduced. The new footprint of the proposed boathouse is approximately 5.25 times larger than the size of the existing boathouse. And what's interesting is in the dimensions that were provided, they do not include the covered dock between the end of the boathouse and the shore, which adds another considerable amount of distance and area to the actual footprint. The Township of Muskoka Lakes Minor Variance Guide states that a number of considerations, including a negative impact on neighboring properties, should be considered. Number 2, we ask that the eastern side lot be set back to a minimum of 45 feet, or ideally relocated more to the center of their property. The bylaws are somewhat confusing, however, and we feel they support the side lot setback of at least 45 feet. We ask that the recommendations of terrestrial environmental consultants be part of any decision by the committee, and these include the footprint of the boathouse on the lake bed be minimized, recommendations that in the report are implemented in full, and that the demolition of the existing boathouse, including complete crib removal, be part of any approval. The crib removal, because any cribs just underneath the water surface are going to be a danger to boats. And also the terrestrial environment recommendation that a fish habitat assessment be undertaken. Number 4, we ask that the width of the proposed boathouse be reduced to comply with the bylaws as recommended in the staff report. Report recommends that the requested variance from the maximum permitted single-story boathouse width be denied. Number 5, we ask that all the recommendations of the staff report be part of any decision by the Committee of Adjustment, and this includes the creation of a site plan agreement. Number 6, we ask that a proper survey of the eastern property line be completed. The original boathouse was built in the 50s. We have asked for a survey or assistance in locating stakes. They have never, ever responded to that request. And we have great concerns about what the actual property line is. So we would request that a proper survey be done before any approval be made. We ask that the committee consider boat navigation through the narrow part. As the gentleman from Muskoka Lumber stated, it is a narrow bay, and at one time historically it was considered a narrow bay or a narrow passageway. We feel that the proposed boathouse will degrade property values and ultimately reduce the enjoyment of our property. It's sort of reminiscent of living on a river and having no regard for those downstream. And our concern is the fact that the sun sets to the west. This particular structure will cast a complete shadow from once the sun gets below the level of their new structure. We ask that if the Lemlins are allowed to build a new boathouse, this is number 8, that it be a more modest version and in a more central location. This application is interesting because it's a blend of the grandfathered old boathouse having a second story and the current bylaws. And if they allow the build, we want it to be smaller and more central on the property. And we'd like it to go straight out from the shoreline, not at an angle towards our property. And then finally, number 9, we ask that the applicant identify the height of the proposed boathouse because this height is not indicated in any of the application. In closing, as the owner of the neighboring property to the east, we hope to one day build a home there. As such, we hope that we can establish a friendly neighborly relationship with the Lemlins, similar to the relations that we enjoy with a number of other property owners along Montgomery Drive. It is not our intention to prevent the Lemlins from reconstructing their boathouse. And as noted, we wanted to work with them on a mutually agreeable plan. I'd like to thank the committee for giving me the time to present this. I hope you consider all of my concerns, and I would especially like to thank the staff, Kristen and Kaylee. Kristen, thank you very much for allowing me the time to get this submission to you, and Kaylee for keeping me up to date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think there was someone else as well that wanted to speak. Thank you. Yes, go ahead. We're waiting for the
Thank
committee.
you, Chair Edwards. As to the last meeting where we had something come back and only the original members could speak to it, I'm assuming that's the same thing here, that I won't be allowed to participate.
Yes, go ahead. I think that's.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, this one was recirculated, so all members of the committee can vote.
Thank you.
The 2 letters that came in, I don't believe we've seen them as a committee. Was one of them from Mr. Erskine? Does it mirror what he just said? So that one probably doesn't need to be read. I would like to hear the other one though. And yeah, and who it's from and.
So the second letter is from Donald Jelly, and it reads, I'm writing because I have concerns about this property. I have a cottage 2 lots away and I have not received this notice. This was sent to me by my neighbor who received the notice on Thursday, December 7th. I'm unable to attend the hearing on such short notice, and the problem with allowing this to go ahead is that it sets the precedent for the future requests for a 2-story boathouse on 200-foot lots. And then it says hard no, Donald and Jelly. And then there's actually a 3rd letter that came in on Saturday. And would you like me to read that one too?
Yes, please.
So it's from Carol McCabe, And she says, "Hi, I'm writing in concern. As a neighbor in Long Bay, I object to the request for such a large variance in terms of a lot size required for a new two-story boathouse. A variance of 96 feet is excessive and sets a bad precedent for future development. The guidelines were developed to protect the overdevelopment of the shorelines of Muskoka. Thank you for your consideration, Carol McCabe."
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
My only comment would be that there seems to be a lot of opposition from neighbors to this application, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
Okay. Anyone else like to say anything? Yes.
What was the address of that last one? Sorry. Of McCabe?
Here, let me pull it back up 1 second. She doesn't, they don't say their address. They just say that they're a neighbor along Long Bay.
Okay, anyone else? I have two resolutions here.
Sorry,
One
Chair
was-
Edwards, just given the amount of opposition, I think I'd like to see this deferred and have it, have the neighbors come to some resolution if they can.
Okay, that's what, yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. As we know, this application was adjourned previously, and just a couple of, I guess, points of clarification that may be helpful with respect to the two shorter comments that we received. You know, ultimately, there is no, this isn't a new two-story boathouse that's proposed. There's an existing legal non-conforming boathouse on the property. So this application seeks to redevelop that structure. And with respect to Mr. Erskine's concerns with respect to side yards, if this were a vacant lot with 300 feet of frontage, a two-story boathouse would be permitted, and it would need to be set back 45 feet from either side lot line. However, in this instance, given that it's so close to the southerly side lot line projection, the setbacks are grandfathered, so to speak, meaning that the dock is permitted to be set back 15 feet from that side lot line projection, and the two-story boathouse is permitted to be set back 30 feet, including the first story portion. So I would note that this application, one of the main improvements is to bring these structures into compliance with the zoning bylaws so far as the side yard setbacks are concerned. So I just wanted to make that point. With respect to the terrace story study that's been done, the recommendation from staff that's before you today would implement that study. It would require the owners to enter into a site plan agreement, and that agreement, they would agree to implement all of the recommendations of the study, and it would be registered on title. And finally, with respect to Mr. Erskine's comments with respect to the size of the first story, staff are recommending that the width request of the first story boathouse be denied. So in other words, if committee approves the application as per staff's recommendation, the first story would need to comply with the township's zoning bylaws so far as width is concerned. And I believe the maximum permitted width would be about 32.5 feet. So again, I just wanted to make that clarification that may be helpful in assisting committee if with your considerations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does that satisfy everyone?
It satisfies me, and I think they've done a lot of work, or they've come a lot closer to compliance and moved it way over in the lot from a situation that was right on the lot line to begin with. And I'd be supporting it today with staff's recommendations.
Okay, so what you're looking at is staff recommendation, and that is without the boathouse width.
That's denied.
That would be denied, so I'll read the second when staff were wise enough to make two resolutions here, and I thank them for that. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Quinton. Be it resolved that application A 6821 amended Lemelin to permit an existing dock and two-story boathouse and to construct a new dock and two-story boathouse is hereby approved, with the following variances being granted. One, to permit a two-story boathouse on a lot with 204 feet of lot frontage in accordance with the provisions for a two-story boathouse on a lot with 300 feet of frontage, and two, permit a cumulative dock width of 57 feet. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. One, that a satisfactory site plan amendment be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and planting, to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and to implement the recommendations of the Fish and Aquatic Habitat Study dated September 8th, 2023, and prepared by Tertiary Environmental Consulting. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? There was a mention, I think staff can make note of that when they do the site plan, that any old cribs and that be removed and that. So if there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, committee.
And I think at this time, we'll take a 10-minute comfort break. Okay, thank you very much. We just have a minor amendment to do, so I'll let Ms. Darling go over that, and then I will read the resolution. Thank you.
For B 4123 ML in the name of Eagleson, there was a clerical error and a bell easement was missed as a condition of consent. And so we're just putting forward a recommendation to fix that.
Thank you very much. So I will read the resolution. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Quinn, be it resolved that the provisional approval be of consent application B 4123 ML Eagleson be amended to include the following condition. 4, that any necessary easement over the subject lands be granted to Bell Canada. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A 1423 Lane, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 1423 in the name of Lang. The subject lands are known municipally as 1191 Elgin House Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 162 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dwelling, 2 sleeping cabins, a shed, a single-story boathouse, and an attached dock, and to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck, a single-story boathouse, and an attached dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. However, Tim did state that the site plan seems to indicate an alternation of the entrance onto the Township Road, and it is noted that an entrance permit will be required from Operational Services. The armor stone retaining wall shown on the site plan cannot be located within the clear zone of the road and will not be approved as proposed. Operational Services should be contacted to discuss the proposed entrance further prior to site plan approval. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities if required, for any necessary implementation of the recommendations of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Beacon Environmental, dated November 13th, 2023. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the owner or agent here? Do you have an agent?
Yes, Chair Edwards, I'm here. Peter Giordano. Okay. Peter Giordano, okay. David Small Designs, 1405 Cornwall Road in Oakville, L6L7T5.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. As introduced, our application is for the removal of an existing boathouse and dock to be replaced by a slightly larger 2-slip, 1-story tall boathouse and dock, as illustrated in the submitted drawings. To facilitate this, we requested a coverage variance increase, proposing coverage for the subject property from 10% to 10.9%. We were required to provide a fish habitat assessment report. You'll find that on file, and the report prepared by Beacon Environmental Limited made recommendations Staff report recommended conditions of approval requiring the owner to enter into a staff agreement with the township, wherein the owner agrees to implement the recommendations of the fish habitat. We accept those conditions. We agree with the staff conclusion that our variance requests pass the 4 tests of Section 45 of the Planning Act. I thank you for your time and consideration. If you have any questions at this time, I'll gladly answer them.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Okay, are there questions from the members? Being none. Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 1423 Lang to permit a redevelopment of the subject property is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 4,613 square feet or 10.9% over the lot area of the entire lot. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities if required for any necessary implementation of the recommendation of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Beacon Environmental and dated November 13th, 2023. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And it's carried. And the next application is A 4723 Valentine, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 4723 in the name of Valentine. The subject lands are known municipally as 1391 Rosso Lake Road 1, unit number 29. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 184 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a swim dock and a single-story boathouse with an associated dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations within the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated October 10th, 2023. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. And as the owner or agent here, I believe we have an agent.
Yeah. Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Jack Lorenz, DeConing Group, Port Curling, 3 Armstrong Point Road, POB 1J0. Just here on behalf of the owner, as they're not available right now, they're on vacation. I'm just here to answer any questions that may be presented. Seems pretty straightforward, and I appreciate the planner's time and report. And if you have any questions, then please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Yes. That's right. I just wanted, that's why I asked you if you wanted to speak. Okay, very good then. And is there anyone else on Zoom there that either for or against? No? Okay, very good. Other questions from the members? Okay. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 4723 Valentine to construct a swim dock and a single-story boathouse with a associated dock is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a cumulative cumulative single-story boathouse width of 37 feet and to permit a cumulative dock width of 65 feet. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. One, that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions dated October 10th, 2023. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? So you have that. So I hope you enjoyed the meeting today. And the next application is a 4923 Hoyle, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 4923 amended in the name of Hoyle. The subject lands are known municipally as 1082 Island Park Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 211 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dwelling with an attached sun deck and construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck. This application was originally heard by Committee of Adjustment on October 12th, 2023. During this hearing, the agent requested that the application be adjourned to allow recirculation of a revised proposal. The application has now been amended to propose a larger dwelling as shown on the screen before you. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into, and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the owner or the agent here wishing to speak on this? See, we have Mr. Allen.
Good morning, Chair Edwards. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm a planner with Planscape, and I'm assisting the Hoyle family today with their variance. Address is 104 Kimberley Ave, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 1Z8. Thank you, Ms. Crowder, for your excellent summary of the events. We are back in front of committee today after first coming to the October meeting. The original proposal in front of the committee was to expand the dwelling in compliance and maintain the existing sleeping cabin, which is about 225 square feet. The owners have revised their plans to further enlarge the cottage, which takes our coverage to 11% from the original 10.4%. Just for comparison purposes, the difference between the original variance proposal and this revised proposal is 36 square feet of additional building area. The building does have a slightly different configuration, and more of the building is set back behind the 50-foot setback than the original proposal. I do have a presentation. I don't know if there's a need to show it, but if the committee is interested, I can provide a comparison of the 2 different proposals, as well as some photos of the shoreline and the rest of the property. Be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would committee like to see that, or are you satisfied with the? Satisfied? Okay. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 4923 amended Hoyle to demolish an existing dwelling with an attached sun deck and construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted: to permit a lot coverage of 6,188.5 square feet, or 11% over the area of the entire lot. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the existing shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? It is carried.
Thank you, Committee.
And the next application is A 5823, and that is 10006160063 Ontario Inc. And that is again Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 5823 in the name of 1006-16063 Ontario Incorporated. The subject lands are known municipally as 30 Clifton Island. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 231 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing single-story dwelling and to construct a new single-story dwelling with an attached sun deck. The application also seeks to recognize as-built dock additions. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application, but noting that the applicant should be advised that spatial separation will be applied at the time of building permit application, which may result in protection requirements and/or limited unprotected openings or protected openings. Lastly, a letter of support was received from Tom and Rita Davidson, expressing their support for the proposed development. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And we have the applicant or applicant's agent here. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Okay, could we have your name, address, and postal code, please? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the members? Yes.
Just one minor question. On the picture on page 221, I'm not sure what that circular thing is, but I'm assuming that it's a hot tub, which, you know, is pretty close to water. I'm not sure whether there's anything we should or can do with respect to that.
Yes, Ms. Crowder.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Stokes. Yes, that is a hot tub. The property owner and I talked briefly about it when we were on site together. The hot tub does sit atop a sun deck that appears to be legal non-complying, and hot tubs are permitted to sit atop sun decks. So the owner did say that they're planning to move it. further back on the property. But it would appear that it does have some rights to remain if they wished. That being said, the sun deck, as part of this redevelopment, the sun deck will actually extend out where that hot tub currently sits. So I do believe it is the intent of the owner to move it further back on the property.
Thank you.
And yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think I have a question mostly of maybe you, Emily, or staff. This is on a floodplain, and I understand the rights to redevelop it, but can we put something in there that we're not responsible for any flooding? Like, is there some way of mitigating any chance of anything coming back to us from approving this?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Bridgman. Yeah, great point and question. We did explore the floodplain policies, and the provincial policy statement speaks to floodplains, as does the district Muskoka official plan. The development today currently sits within the floodplain, and if this were to further encroach into the floodplain, we might have some more concerns than we do. That being said, the proposed dwelling expansion actually is more so to the rear of the dwelling. And they're actually proposing to move the dwelling portion of this cottage further back and replacing it with a sun deck, which is considered to be a structure that would inhibit flood flows less than a dwelling would. So with that in mind, we didn't see too many concerns with the proposal. If they were planning to go further into the floodplain or add an addition within the floodplain, that would be something that we would certainly have a stronger stance on. That being said, we can include some provisions in the site plan agreement that speak to floodplain policies. For specifics on how those policies would be worded, I would look to Mr. Sharp, but I do know that we can have some general provision wording in there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the redevelopment. I just want us to be protected in case anybody came back. So is that the site plan agreement, Mr. Sharp?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Member Member Bridgman. I apologize. There's too many of you as last names that start with B. So, in any event, yeah, I think it's a good question. I think site plan agreements, we get the authority to impose for site plan control under Section 41 of the Planning Act. And I'm hesitant at this point to say that the inclusion of some wording that would dissolve the township of any liability in a site plan agreement would be an appropriate condition. I may look to Mr. Pink. It may be that we do that through a development agreement or a minor variance agreement. Of course, if the owner or the agent is happy to go along with that type of condition, we could of course include it, and they would acknowledge that and sign the agreement if we go down that path. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Pink.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Committee may be pleased to know that my understanding is the committee would not be liable, nor would the municipality, for any policy-based decisions. So when you make a decision on a planning application, such as minor variance committee adjustment or council on a bylaw, you're not held liable for that. So I think we are covered. We could explore, agreements as Mr. Sharp has outlined, but I think it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you're more or less acknowledging some sort of guilt there, and I think that may backfire a little bit. I think it's a broader legal question, but I believe you don't need to worry about your decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pink. Is there any other questions or comments? Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 5823, that's 10006166063 Ontario Inc., to demolish an existing single-story dwelling and to construct a new single-story dwelling with an attached sun deck and dock additions is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a minimum front yard setback of 0.5 feet at the closest point for the sun deck. 2, to permit a front yard setback of 9 feet at the closest point for a dwelling. 3, to permit a side yard setback of 3.5 feet at the closest point for a dwelling. 4, to permit a minimum side yard setback of 0.3 feet at the closest point for a sun deck. 5, to permit a lot coverage of 1,989.4 square feet or 8.2 over the area of the entire lot. 6, to permit additions to an existing dock with a cumulative width of 55 feet. And 7, to permit a dock addition to be set back 17 feet at the closest point from the westerly side lot line projection. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and planting, and to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A 6323 Allison. And that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6323 in the name of Allison. The subject lands are known municipally as 1036 Brandy Crest Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 245 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a 2-story dwelling. Please note that minor variance application A 6322 was previously circulated and approved by the Township's Committee of Adjustment in November of 2022 for relief from front yard, exterior side yard, and street setbacks for the development of a dwelling. The applicant has changed the location of the proposed development envelope, hence the application before you today. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating that Public Works does not typically support the relaxation of setbacks from public roads or from the unopened road allowance. However, it is recognized that the property has limited options in terms of setbacks and that the application has made an attempt to balance the competing requirements. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title for retention of vegetation. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the owner or agent here?
Good
Yes.
morning, Chair and members of committee. Yeah, I'm here. Luke Allison, 1068 Brandy Crest Road, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1JO.
Okay, would you like to state anything?
No, I think she pretty much just covered it. So yeah, I defer to your judgment on this one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by Member Grogan Green, second by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 6323 Allison to construct a new 2-story dwelling is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a dwelling to be set back 34 feet at the closest point from the front lot line. And two, to permit a dwelling to be set back 20 feet at the closest point from an unopened road allowance. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title for retention of vegetation. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next application is A6423, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A6423 in the name of Korodzinski and Wooters. The subject lands are known municipally as One Island Key, located on Skeleton Lake. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 263 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to enclose an existing sun deck to the southwest of the existing dwelling, to construct a new dwelling addition to the northwest of the existing dwelling, and to construct a covered porch addition to the northeast of the existing dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. And comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, also stating no objection to the application. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that an as-built office/activity building or sleeping cabin identified on the submitted site plan be removed or brought into compliance with applicable zoning requirements, and that an as-built sun deck attached to a ramp be removed or brought into compliance with applicable zoning requirements. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, committee members, I am Marianne Korodzinski, 15 Bernie Crescent, M4G3G4. I'm an owner of the property together with my husband, Brad Waters. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the submission. And before that, I'd like to thank the committee for their time and especially staff members also for their guidance during the application process.
Thank you very much.
So we do acknowledge, yes, thank you. So we do acknowledge the general importance of minimum setbacks for the waterfront. We believe a minor variance should be granted in this case for the following reasons: that the front addition is relatively small in size, and this combined with the current vegetation means that it will have a minor effect on appearance from neighboring properties or the water. That the addition represents an enclosure of an existing sun deck, and this and the size of the lot means that minimal natural habitat is being lost. And also that other parts of the existing dwelling are closer to the waterfront than the proposed addition. Now, the staff report, so our application recommended approval condition. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the conditions because we believe it's warranted to approve without the conditions. And the conditions were for an existing structure used as a den or hobby room, and as an existing sun deck to be brought into compliance with zoning rules or removed. The reason we asked committee to approve without these conditions is that we believe that these structures are in compliance with the zoning rules, and that the reason they were deemed non-compliant is that the site visit was carried out on November 20th, when the property had been winterized and therefore not reflecting the regular use of the structures. So let me first address the activity room. The report noted that no building permit had been issued for it. That is correct. It is below the square footage of what requires a building permit. And second, it was felt to be used as a sleeping cabin based on the presence of a bed observed at the time. At the time of the site visit, the structure was in fact used for furniture storage due to construction of the sleeping cabin. There was a bed inside, but if you look at your pictures from the report, and I don't know if that could be pulled up on the screen, I cannot share my screen, you can actually see that on top of that bed is stacked another bed, a bed frame. You can see, oh, here we are. Maybe I'll let you go to that photo. There we are, yes. So if you zoom in there, so you can see a bed stacked upon another bed. You can see 5 boxes. These are new light fixtures for the sleeping cabin. And there's also other furniture like a table and chairs. So at the time of the site visit, the structure was used as a storage shed, which we believe is compliant with the bylaw. And the long-term plan is for these contents to be moved to the sleeping cabin and then use this structure as a den and hobby room. This would be a quiet place to make a call, take a video conference, read a book, knit. So the question then is that compliant use of a structure, given that the zoning bylaw only permits 2 structures with habitable room? So I would like to refer to the definition of habitable room, which is on page 110 of the bylaw. And it states, a den, library, or hobby room exceeding 18.6 square meters are deemed to be habitable room under this bylaw. So this implies that a den, library, or hobby room not exceeding 18.6 square meters are not deemed to be habitable room. So we therefore believe that this structure is compliant, given its size did not require a building permit, its current use as a storage shed, and its future intended use as a den, library, hobby room, which is not designated habitable room. So the second condition was pertaining to the identified sun deck. And maybe if you could go to the picture of that, it would be easier to explain. So the interpretation that this was used as a sun deck was due to 4 chairs placed on the sun deck or the structure. Now, while you look for that, I'll say that these 4 chairs normally reside on the swim dock that had been removed for the winter. There we are, yes. And I could show you a number of photos from different dates over many years demonstrating that these chairs are always on the swim dock. I can't share my screen, but if committee wishes, I'd be happy to submit that. The structure is never used as a sun deck. What it is that it's a boardwalk. It was constructed for accessibility because the terrain is very rugged. We have 2 family members that due to medical reasons have very poor balance and are otherwise unable to access the waterfront and the swim dock. So we therefore ask that also this condition be removed, given that it is a boardwalk and not a sun deck. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Yes, Member Stokes.
I'd like to understand from staff, specifically with respect to the sleeping cabin or office activity building, or however it's being characterized, if the contention by the owners is correct in terms of the need for a permit. And I'd also like to understand what would need to be done to have it brought into compliance as per the conditions.
Yes, Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Stokes. Yes, thank you for the question. So my understanding, and I'll look to my colleagues to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the attachment of the sun deck to this structure adds to the overall size of this structure, and therefore it does need a building permit. And, we would, at the very least, question what the size is of this structure overall, including the sun deck. So I think, if it can be shown to us that it doesn't require a building permit, then that would be satisfactory. But at this time, we don't know for certain. I'm leaning toward that it would, but again, I would look to my building colleagues to confirm that for us. But also, due to the fact that when I was on site, as Ms. Kurodzinski pointed out, there is a bed inside the structure. It did appear to me to be a sleeping cabin based on what we see during our site visits. And, if the reason we've worded the condition such is so that if we are able to substantiate that it is something that we wouldn't constitute as a sleeping cabin, that we can gather that information, and if the condition isn't necessary, then it can be waived as such. As far as bringing it into zoning compliance, if this is deemed to be a third habitable building or a second sleeping cabin on the property, you would need to undergo a zoning bylaw amendment essentially to bring it into zoning compliance, so to speak. So that's what that wording is there. I think that answered all your questions. I don't think you had any about the sun deck, but I'm happy to elaborate if need be.
I'm not as interested in the sun deck or walkway or whatever we're calling it today, as I am with the structure. Thanks. That's helpful.
Anyone else? Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just have a quick question. The chairs on the boardwalk, change it to a sun deck? I'm just a little confused by that. I mean, it's built form on the water, so help me out.
Through you, Chair Edwards, if I may, to Member Bridgman.
Yes.
Yeah, so the chairs don't necessarily change what it is. It is it's there. It's sitting close to the water. The chairs would imply a use. And when we're dealing with a structure, we are looking at both its physical properties, but also what is the use that we're talking about here. There were parts of this boardwalk or sun deck, as you speak, that were skinnier than others. It sort of widens out at this point where the chairs are, and so staff felt that this was used more as a lounging area or as a sun deck feature. And it appears that they do not have what's considered to be legal non-complying rights to be located that closely. When we're looking at, we do consider access as part of this. So the way that the cottage is laid out right now, it appears that this boardwalk or sun deck feature sort of wraps around to both sides of the cottage. So it's more so just the wider portion that staff are taking issue with, but it wouldn't prevent access as far as we understand. But I think Mr. Sharp would like to elaborate a bit more.
Could I just comment on that as well? This is Brad, Marianne's husband. The boardwalk is actually the identical width throughout all of it. It doesn't change. In fact, it gets a little bit narrower where it goes around that rock where the chairs are. It's actually narrower than everywhere else. And the boardwalk was put there because the terrain is rocky and steep, and because it's so close to the shoreline, we didn't want to disrupt the shoreline, which is all natural vegetation right now, by sort of leveling it or digging a path or putting in stone or something else. We thought putting the boardwalk on would be a sort of less invasive for the vegetation around there.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, just to briefly summarize, I think where staff are at with this ultimately, these two matters are enforcement issues and they can be addressed through that process. I think the reason staff put forward the two conditions is they saw them as somewhat related to the relief that's been requested, specifically the sun deck, if you want to call it that, whatever it is, the structure. It is within the front yard and it does contribute to built form. Secondly, with respect to the office or activity building, staff do at this time view that as a second sleeping cabin as per the township's zoning bylaw. And if it is in fact a sleeping cabin, the zoning bylaw doesn't permit an increase in the floor area of the dwelling. So that is related. I think staff have put forward conditions that are flexible in nature, meaning that if the applicants can demonstrate that these structures comply with the zoning bylaw, then the conditions are fulfilled. So I would suggest that we focus on the variance at hand and staff can deal with the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And anyone else have a comment?
Just a matter of clarity, and I've spoken to it a few times, that deck attached to the hobby room as such, I'm just surprised that it is built form, being a deck outside that close to the ground.
Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Quinn, you're referring to the sun deck attached to this building here, and you're wondering about.
I just didn't, for my own clarification, I wouldn't have considered that built form.
Okay. Yeah, I think through you, Chair Edwards, the sun deck here that we're referring to isn't the same sun deck that we're talking about in terms of the condition. The condition is referring to the sun deck that's close to the water there, that's attached to the dock. So I can show you that in this photo. If I can find, there it is. To this right here. Yeah, so I think that answers that question. This is more so the point of built form along the shoreline that we're referring to in the staff report.
Okay, are there any other questions? I'm going to read the resolution the way it was written, because it does leave some wiggle room in there as far as I'm concerned, and we can talk about it after. Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Brown, be it resolved that application A 6423 Korinski and Waters to construct a dwelling addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a dwelling addition to be set back 27.5 feet at the closest point from the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that the as-built office activity room sleeping cabin identified in the submitted site plan be removed or brought into compliance with the applicable zoning requirements, and 2, that an as-built sun deck attached to a ramp be removed or again brought into compliance with the applicable zoning requirements. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any comments on that or questions? Would you like to see that left in the way it is? I would like to, but okay. Okay, so you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next one is A 6523. That is Thompson, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6523 in the name of Thompson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1096 Kanakahaki Yotahaje, I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 279 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built sun deck. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, stating no objection to the application. Sorry, there's only 2 comments. Sorry. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating that if approved, the applicants will require a building permit to recognize and legalize the sun deck. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with any necessary securities for retention of vegetation and, if possible, revegetation of the shoreline. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darling. And is the applicant's agent here? I believe we have the owner. Okay, thank you.
Hello, Patricia Thompson, 18 Queen Street, Schaumburg. Log Ito is my postal code.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Patricia Thompson, 18 Queen Street, Schaumburg, Ontario. Postal code Log Ito.
Yes. Okay.
Well.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much for helping us out here and listening to us, and for all the work you've done today. It's quite an experience for me. I just wanted to say that, yes, the other deck rather that we had was in terrible shape. I did make a mistake with not getting a building permit. And as was noted in the report, the cottage was built in 1914?
Yeah.
1914. So it's not a Muskoka mansion. It does have a nice deck. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Okay, questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just for clarification, there was a deck there that is legal non-compliant and it was just being replaced. That's what I'm not quite understanding here.
Through you, Chair. So there was a deck that was attached to the original dwelling, but the applicants were unable to provide the details of that deck for how far it was from the water and all of the necessary details that we would need in order to have the variance applied appropriately. So they opted to not use the legal non-complying parts of the zoning bylaw and recognize the as-built deck. From conversations with the owners, they are stating that the punch out that you see is the new portion of the deck, but they didn't have any dated photos or a survey or any other information to provide where the original part started and ended.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
We have a public member who had their hand raised when you asked if anyone was in opposition.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I thought there was no one. Okay, go ahead. Bring them in, please.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we have your name, address, and postal code, please?
Valerie Swatko. My full-time address is 24 Legion Road, Etobicoke, Ontario, M8V4C5, but I am also the owner of the neighboring property at 1096, unit number 4. And I am just here to say that I was well aware. I went through my photos too. I don't have any photos of Al and Patty's previous deck. But I was on it many times, and their new deck is very much in line with what was there. It is much nicer. And I'm just here to vouch for them that they removed nothing in order to build that deck in terms of trees or vegetation. It's a quite rocky, we're on a very steep rocky incline to the Muskoka River. So you know, they where that deck was went back into the same location with, I think, you know, it's a bit of a different shape, but there was no there was no vegetation in front of that deck to begin with. So anyway, that's all I wanted to add.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. That helps. And I will ask again, is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against this? And they want to come in? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Bell.
Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Sophie Bell. I am a neighbor at 1096. I reside in Toronto at 435 St. Clair Avenue East. But we are in 1096 and we're unit number 2. So we are direct neighbors as well. I just want to echo what Valerie Swatko has stated. I too have no photos, but certainly the new deck doesn't extend beyond what was there, and no vegetation has been disturbed, and it is much nicer. That's all I have to say.
Right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to make a comment on this? Oh, you don't believe so? Okay. Thank you. And are there questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 6523 Thompson to recognize an as-built sun deck is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit an as-built sun deck to be 36 feet at the closest point from the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with any necessary securities for retention of vegetation and, if possible, revegetation of the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And I don't believe there's any other correspondence, unfinished business, or any other items. So I will read the next motion. Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved, the meeting adjourned at 11:41 a.m. All those in favor? And I'd just like to wish everyone a very happy holiday. And that has been a pleasure this year, and looking forward to the future in the next year. So happy holidays, everyone.